Good evening, everybody.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Hi, all. Good evening.
Welcome to Origins of the Ancients. As usual, I'm here with the lovely Birgitta, and we have a lovely guest today, Ashley Robinson. We're going to be talking about all things Anunnaki, the Galactic Light Federation. I don't know what.
Eden.
Sorry.
The Garden of Eden.
The garden. Oh, that's right. The Garden of Eden. What else?
What else? Channeling. I'm doing some channeling. That's for sure. And if anybody has any really, really interesting questions, you know, we give a reading, but it's got to be really top notch. And then what else did I say? I said the Garden of Eden. I can't remember what else I said, but it's mainly, yes, the Anunnaki, the Galactic Federation, you know, how the Anunnaki are, well, they're part of us really, but then we're all part of a galactic race. We're all different star seeds and star beings. So yeah, I think we might alter your reality just a little bit tonight.
Ever so slightly.
Yes. So, well, I'm Birgitta. And I'll just, for those of you that are new, actually, maybe really quick. Actually, no, we can't do that. See, I'm way ahead of myself. How about we do some hellos? We do some shares, right?
Yeah.
So share the YouTube video. I'm not sure how that goes. Ashley would know how that goes because you can actually share. You can share it. I think there's a little 3 dots and you can share it.
Yeah, there's a share button and there's a subscribe button. So, yeah.
And we're also on Instagram, Spiritual Psychics TV. We're also on Twitter. So follow us there as well. And if you're not subscribed to this channel as yet, please subscribe because there's so many good shows and that will really help you with elevating your awareness, you know, and expanding your consciousness. It's very varied. So please do subscribe. Oh, hi, Mary. How are you?
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Terry.
Terry, hello.
Terry, can I ask you something? Can you please go ahead and share that on my Universal Light Warriors wall because you're a moderator and I can't do that right now? Thank you. Hi, Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Oh, hey, Karen. How are you?
Hi, Karen.
Hello, Julie. Who's that? Libra?
Libra. Yep. Hiya. Hi,
Tina. Hi, Tina. Hello, Crystal. Oh, I love your background.
Crystal. Yeah, it looks nice, doesn't it?
Hi, Paul.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, Sari she's in Seattle. She's in Seattle.
Right.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Terry.
Okay, so just want to give a nice hello to Ashley. Tell us a little bit about yourself, if anybody's watching and you haven't met before.
Hi, good evening, ladies, and thank you for having me back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone joining us on YouTube this evening. I'm Ashley Robinson. I'm a spiritualist medium based in South London out of Wimbledon Spiritualist Church. and I've grown up as a spiritualist. My parents, Ray and Jackie Robinson, are both ministers of religion. They run Wimbledon and Hatbridge churches. So the last 38 years of my life, which is all of my life in this existence, have been in and around spiritual and spiritualism. And I'm also fascinated by shows like Ancient Aliens, always been really drawn to anything sort of sci-fi and fantasy, predominantly from an entertainment point of view. But as I've become more spiritual and I've started to attune to more things, I often find a tread a thin line between the fantasy sci-fi world and the world I'm living in now.
Oh, but then again, what is truth and what is reality, Ashley?
Well, I know that inspiration from these authors and producers, directors, it comes from somewhere. And even at the very heart of genuine sort of creativity that comes from that person, I still feel that there's the ability for those people to be inspired by what I would describe as sort of guides and influencers and other things that you can't necessarily see with your human senses.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so are we ready to crack on?
Absolutely.
Yeah, as I'll ever be.
So let's start. Where shall we start? Shall we start at the beginning? Shall we start at the beginning of creation? What?
Oh, hi Leslie. Yeah, we missed you there.
Oh, yeah, hi Diego. Missed you there as well. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That was Richard whispering in my ear. So yeah, so where should we start?
At the beginning.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, about creation. How were we created, you know? Wow, were we just descendants from Adam and Eve? Did God create us? You know, do you believe in the traditional Bible story of the Garden of Eden, or was it something completely different?
It's something completely different.
Yeah, Ash, I just want to ask you, because I know I sent you a book, The Lost Book of Enki, and you started reading that, right?
Yeah, started reading it.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, where do I start? Yeah, okay. So the Garden of Eden. So let me start with like billions and billions of years ago. Actually, the Pleiadians, Arturians, were the first one to come to this planet. And then millions of years later, it was the Anunnaki that came here. Now, we always think of the Anunnaki as someone that, as a species that are perceived as being, and I remember this 20 years ago when I first heard of them. It's like, oh my God, they are so evil. They are so evil. You know, they're the epitome of evil, but they weren't. You have to understand one thing. All species throughout the universe are, our consciousness. So they are evolving, just like we are an evolving species. Okay, we're somewhere down at the bottom of the ladder. But I mean, but we are evolving. And so the Anunnaki, when they came to Earth, and this is something that we discussed in our show, a couple of weeks ago, is they searched throughout the universe because their planet was dying. They could not, the atmosphere was dying. They could not grow any more food, so the people were dying. And they needed gold because they were alchemists. They are incredible, incredible engineers. They're masters of technology. They're alchemists. And so they needed gold to help alchemize their atmosphere, and so that they could sustain themselves. And so they found it here. And the story goes that the Igigi helped them, who they called like a lesser god to them. So they kind of served them and they helped them. But here is the thing that really doesn't add up to me, because if the Anunnaki were they were so far advanced technology wise, why would they need the Igigi to mine the gold?
Because they didn't want to do it themselves.
No. But they had the machines, they had the machinery, they had the technological advancement. But anyhow, the Igigi rebelled, and so then, Enlil and Enki were sent to Earth, right, from the Anunnaki by their father Anu. And Enlil and Enki were half brothers. And this is where it gets a little bit muddled, okay? Because they were, they worked with genetics and DNA, and when they came to planet Earth, they actually crashed into the sea, and they made, they started their settlement at Idiru, which is former Mesopotamia, which is, of course, in between, so Syria, Iraq, Iran, I believe. It's in that area.
Yeah.
And so you have to understand one thing. We're only like 5 foot something, right? 5 foot.
Short. We're all short.
We're short. They were 25 to 30 feet in height. Okay. And so many monuments around the world, and we're talking about the pyramids here. The Anunnaki built them. And they built them.
That would have been something for them to stub their toes on, wouldn't it?
Sorry? Yes.
That would have been something for them to stub their toes on.
But
for a 20-footer, that's like a piece of Lego.
Yeah, but the thing is, absolutely, but the thing is, like the pyramids, not much is left, but, they were built by the Anunnaki, and these were what you would call docking stations for their spaceships. Docking stations, yeah, so landing gear. And but getting back to Enlil and Enki, so Enlil and Enki, they created the human race. But what they did actually, because they didn't get it right, it was experimenting, and so they created the Nephilim. But the Nephilim were really massive beings, but they just didn't have the brain capacity. So it was a trial and error. And then finally, and the thing is, Enlil wanted to produce Homo sapiens, but he didn't want them to reproduce because, he needed to keep them in control. And if they reproduce, then, it'd be like rabbits. Multiplying really quickly.
Yeah.
And so Enki was like, but Enki behind his back, he was like, I'm going to try something. And so he saw 2 women and he got them impregnated, and, they gave birth to Adam and Eve. And he took them back to what you call the Garden of Eden. But the Garden of Eden is not in the biblical sense, but it's like, in the city of Idiru, they had lots of green space. And I actually want to call it like a base station. And nobody was any the wiser. Enlil didn't figure it out until, here's the thing. Remember in the Garden of Eden when the serpent came and Eve took a bite out of the apple?
Yeah.
Right? And you think, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. What happened to Adam and Eve is they got older, right? And their hormones were playing up. So, of course, they mated. Or they had intercourse, whatever, sex, love, you name it. And so that was the serpent that, so the serpent and the apple. So, her fruit, she wasn't a virgin anymore. So Enlil, who figured out, oh my gosh, what have you done, And he was mad. He was really mad. And so they were cast out. And the story goes that, there was like a faction. There was a faction between the 2 parties. So you had light versus darkness. And I'm not going to say, some people say it's a story about Michael and Lucifer. Others say it could be Cain and Abel. I'm not going to fill that in. But Enki is the builder of civilizations, and he taught humanity so much. It is incredible, because the Sumerian civilization, because of the Anunnaki, and it's not just Enki, but they were taught to read, to write. They were taught about engineering, about astrology, about the planetary systems. It was really amazing. But the Sumerians were amazing architects, really. And just like the Egyptians, thousands and thousands of years later, everything was aligned with the planetary systems, with the constellations, and they were very much in tune also with Mother Nature. Now, the difference between Enki and Enlil was that Enki, gave humanity, what do you call it, the choice to, how do I put that in English? It's like saying to implement the divine spark within them. So they were not just programmed like Enlil wanted them to be programmed as workers. So Enki gave them free will. That's what he did. And so that is how humanity started. And then you want to ask about the come on. What do you call that? Neanderthalers? The ape men?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, Neanderthals. And so that was also part of the experiment. That was before Adam, because like I said, they tried to manipulate the DNA and genetics until they finally got it right with Adam and Eve. And, if I want to fast forward really quickly to like a couple of, I don't know the timestamp exactly, but say a couple of million years later, when we had Atlantis, the Pleiades, the Arcturians, the Syrians, they all tinkered with DNA and genetics and creating other life forms. And so that is why I always say, we are a mishmash of star beings. We really, really are. And, we are here. We are actually here because the warring started. And as you can clearly see, in this day and age, that hasn't stopped. That matrix has been created, but the matrix, that programming was set during that time. And so, yeah. Actually, does anybody else want to add anything? Because I'll go off on a tangent.
So where does the fallen angels come into that then? Because you got, and there's loads of different words that they're known by.
So you know what I actually believe, and this is where it started to tear in the fabric like 2 nights ago. I'm like, no, that's not possible. Yes, but actually it is. So when we talk about the archangels, and I believe that the archangels not necessarily had earthly lives, but I do believe that they lived different lives in different dimensions, and I very much believe that about all of the angels, really. I think that what we perceive as heaven, with it's all love, light, and divine, yes, but I think we are all star beings. And I think that what we perceive to be our reality is not really our reality, because it's a narrative that we have been fed, and we believe that narrative. So I wanted to start with this, I'm just being reminded right now, is that the story, and because I channeled something, but I really want you all to step outside of that box that you have created, your box of reality, of what you perceive to be a reality. And I just want you to sit there and listen with an open heart, and and expand your mind. And I think that's really, really important. So Now I've lost my train of thought. But yes, sorry, the archangels. So I believe angels, some of them were the Anunnaki. I believe many of them have ascended. I think some of them are the fallen ones. And you have to remember the archangels and many of these beings are about 30 foot in height. But then many of the archangels have ascended over the billions of years. They have ascended. So they are that pure love, light, and divine consciousness. Okay. But they are still evolving just like we are.
Yeah.
And I want to say something. When we talk about Lucifer was the morning star. So he was the builder of civilizations. But I think we have it all twisted because the Bible talks about Lucifer as the fallen angel. But remember that Lucifer went down to earth willingly to help humanity, to help create humanity. That is what he did.
He would not bow down before God when asked, though. Therefore, he grabbed 200 of his mates and helped to bring us forward because they were trying to stop that, and Lil was trying to stop that.
Yeah, and I
think we need to clear up who God is here.
Anu.
Yeah. So Anu would be Enki and Enlil's dad.
Yes.
So when I first figured that one out, what a light bulb moment was that. But so when people talk about God, to me, I'm thinking Anu.
That's right.
So you can, everything that we're talking about, you can transfer into the Bible. The two stories, they run parallel to each other.
Do you know what the meaning of Anunnaki is? So Anu and Ki, his wife, right?
Yeah.
Anunnaki means children of heaven.
Yeah.
There is a question there from Tina. Why did the other beings allow their history here to be hidden?
I think it was more that it's been hidden from us because certain people didn't want us to. Well, obviously didn't want us to know. So, you're getting into cabal and control there. So we've had all of this history hidden from us because if we knew what had actually happened, we would be uncontrolled. Okay. But it's been used to keep us in check over the years.
Ash, thoughts?
Yeah, millions of thoughts. It was interesting when you just said about sort of God down. I think that would have been a perception then of the sort of early earthlings, the perception of someone so much more powerful, magic than as a god. I mean, I personally see God as more of a description of the combined particles of everything in the universe. That divine energy of sort of spirit. So I've never really seen God as a figurehead. More of an umbrella for everything that's made of. But I could certainly see how people with superior knowledge and technology would have had a godlike feeling, and how actually if you were reliant on them for shelter or food and water or protection, why you would want to worship or take instruction from that person. Now, part of that obviously is influenced as an adult watching then sci-fi. One of my favourite shows was Stargates, and you talk about the portals, but actually you look at the history. They were talking about these people coming to Earth using the pyramids as landing platforms as well. So taking a bit of what you said there, but actually decided it would have been very easy to have controlled masses of people because they would have been terrified as well as amazed by the technology, particularly if the technology was used against them to hurt people or to control them. I think the other really interesting thing, if we think about astronauts, you said something, Birgitta, about your perception of the race and how they could be quite bad. And I think to myself, well, if Earth right now was to launch a mission in space, and obviously we've certainly done that a few times that we all know about, but it wouldn't necessarily be a representative of the planet or the people on the planet, would it? I mean, it would probably be military. Most of the people that have gone to space first have been, you know, very well educated, middle class sort of white guys. I know there's been a few bits of diversity and inclusive there, but we certainly don't have representatives of even all the major religions in the UK, let alone the average sort of school of thought. So if they were to make first contact with another planet to represent Earth, it wouldn't necessarily be representative. And of course, if we were going to mine another planet, looking at how we even treat other humans on Earth, it would be the rich and greedy people driven by that power to take what they want. So you think about that greed, that business, the military arm of anyone that had the ability to go there and take what they want. It wouldn't truly be representative of the planet. So yeah, no, really interesting. I'm sort of still with you. It's a combination of my own working knowledge and belief, and a little bit of Hollywood.
You know, I want to just step into Hollywood. In a minute, I'll tell you what I've channeled. But there are some really, really good movies where first of all, if we talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, that's Nibiru, okay? That talks about the different races. And, you know, that was in the 1990s, and I absolutely loved that series. And it explains so much. Another one for you is Westworld, which is with Anthony Hopkins and Rachel.
I tried to find that. You have to, it's paid for on Amazon, isn't it?
Yeah. So no, there's another site. I'll send it to you. It's free.
Oh, okay.
Can't see it. But that is amazing. And I am a massive fan of Transformers. And I know people slated those movies, but especially the last one, Transformers, The Last Night. It talks about, which Anthony Hopkins in the trailer says it so brilliantly, you know, he talks about, you know, where are we from? Where did we come from? It refers to the
Spark.
I always call it, but actually I do channel the Brethren of Light, and they talk about the old spark. And I channeled them, gosh, maybe over a year ago, and I still do, because I love them. They are amazing. And these are like 30 foot, I mean, they're 30 feet high. And they are amazing. And they are warriors because they have these swords of light. And just like Michael, because Archangel Michael is a warrior, you know, he's a warrior of the light. But The Last Night really refers to the Anunnaki, and it talks about, of course, the Decepticons and the what they called, the Autobots. But if you look, you really just need to watch it, and then you will start to understand. You know, it's always been a battle about Earth, always. And I'm not sure why Earth is that important, you know, but there's always been a battle for it since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Using sort of a calendar that I would understand, how far back are we going to the sort of first visits of people that weren't born on this planet?
Millions of years people have been coming here.
Millions
of years. Actually billions, because the Pleiades were the first.
Yeah, and they have found evidence of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's evidence of nuclear war that goes back millions of years, and there's evidence. There's some other evidence as well that's not on the top of my head, but yeah. But again, it's not mainstream because, you know.
It isn't mainstream. I can't read that question.
Are the archangels more of the first and second Earth, i.e. around before dinosaur departure? The archangels more? No, they've been around always.
Yes, they have.
since the beginning of time.
Birgitta, you mentioned the ancient Egyptian sort of civilization and the pyramids. Then, so are they dated at the correct date, or are you saying that they're actually as physical structures they're much older than that?
They're much older than than what we think. I know they said they're used as burial chambers, and I'm sure that they were, but that was not their main focus. I mean, the pyramids are energy grids.
They're power sources.
They're power sources. Sorry, there's a question from Diego. Sorry, who or how the Anunnaki were created? Well, everything springs from source, doesn't it?
They are hybrids.
They are hybrids.
Reptilians. Because we know the galaxy was constantly, not too bad at the moment, by the way, oddly. So yeah, galaxy's always been at war, and you know how royal families marry royal families to create peace. They do it on this planet, you know, with on a human level, but they also do it intergalactically.
Are you sure? Because it's not working out so well here.
Not at the moment. And it is quite quiet out there at the moment, I have to say.
It's rife with
Story of my life at the moment. Yeah. We've got one rogue at the moment, so that's going to be fun.
No, sorry, Tina. No, they would not be visible. Okay, sorry. I'm going to answer your question in a minute, Tina. What did you want to say, Ashley?
I was just going to come off the bat. It's interesting that Tina came in with that question. I was going to go back to something you had said, Kate, about things that have been held back. And obviously, just before the show went live, we were talking about the power that Christianity had as a back of the Roman Empire, and how things started to come from that, and how there are many things that we as the average human being don't get to read or have a knowledge of what the Vatican have decided is not worthy of human consumption. But I was wondering about life on other planets, and I was worried about that timing thing. And is it a case that there's a conscious decision to not have obvious contact with us, the people of Earth at the moment, or is it more of a case that the people in charge, so-called elected leaders and governments are in contact, and they decide not to tell us?
Yeah, I think the leaders of governments are very much in contact with leaders from other planets, and they're working together all the time. I know that they hop on and off whales, especially at the moment, a fair amount. Yeah.
If we want to talk about the Bible, just going back on there, because it's like the Bible, the Garden of Eden, it's been vastly misinterpreted, but that's because it's been done. It's like a deviation. Okay, when you came here, you made a conscious choice to come back here and to ascend. Okay, because Earth is a training ground. I call it a training ground.
Yeah,
it really is, and it's probably one of the most difficult planets, because you have come back in such a low density, and you have to find that light within yourself. You have to find that authenticity, and that's why I always say life is a walk to remembering who you are. That's what it's all about, and the quicker you understand that the experiences that you have been roped in are simply experiences. As they have put it, the Anunnaki, they have said, life is an experiment, okay? And you are partaking in this experiment, creating your own experiences, yeah? And through the narrative through the conditioning, you have to find the light, you have to switch the light back in your soul. You have to find the light switch, because you've been so dumbed down. It's incredible. But yet in that, that is the beauty. But they're saying, like, the misconstrued Bible has been rewritten countless times, and it's been so that the story has been so diluted over the many thousands of years, and that people have lost track of its authenticity. And it's like
all the bits that have been taken out.
Yeah, so many have been following this blindly, like bleating sheep, daring to question it not because they believe it to be true. It's because in fear to the succumbment of the deviating and wandering eeriness of the trajectory of the mind, having lived in the illusion of the rigidness, spoon-fed indoctrination of the created stories. Now, all whilst one keeps rejecting the authentic self. It's incredible. Because that's what we do. We keep rejecting ourselves because we allow the narrative from outside of us to influence us. And that is, it could be positive, it could be negative, but we are so trapped in the fear. Why?
Yeah. And then you get these people, like everybody's waking up, we're all getting snippets of information that we put together, and they're so people are so conditioned that they just like,
yeah.
It's fear. Fear is the illusion. Okay, you have to look at it this way. Fear is the illusion that deviates one on the path back to the remembrance of self. So
I've always seen the Bible as like a bit of a scrapbook or a portfolio. I mean, the first part of my life, I used to sometimes refer to myself as a Christian spiritualist, and indeed at Wimbledon Spiritualist with Church, we would talk about accepting the leadership of Jesus. We believe that Jesus was a real character, a great leader, and had some great lessons. But actually, within the Bible, I think there's some really nice stories, and I always see it more therefore as a portfolio. But I always imagined it as being assembled by, I call them Roman politicians. I know it's far deeper than that, but they sort of taken the stories that people had heard, legends, and myths and other bits and pieces, and tried to put it all into one book. Because Christianity was obviously like more of a modern concept then, wasn't it? It was the hippie religion of the time, and they said, oh no, we've got this new religion, it's Christianity, and we're going to bring in all these things about existing belief systems and okay, yeah, you pagans over there, yeah, all of that, yeah, 25th of December, that's an important date to us too, we'll have that one. And it was this sort of blend of myth and legend and fact, and just some nice stories about morals, and then some strange stories that don't always sort of seem to fit within the Bible. God as a almighty, asking someone to kill their son. Well, what's all that all about? Well, actually, it was all about the free will not to do it, rather than the instruction. Or does it go back to the time of the ancestors then, where gods weren't really gods? They were the people with superior power and technology, and actually there was an opportunity to rebel against that, not to do everything you'd always been told. And I think that in itself is quite exciting, as we're in this sort of place. And I know you challenged me the other day, Birgitta, when I said strange times, and it was different times, perhaps exciting times, but this opportunity to create our own scrapbook, our own portfolio of the stories that feel right with us in the way we want to live our life. My dad, to a certain extent, shares some of my enjoyment of sci-fi, but not always some of my beliefs. But actually, he's brought me up to always challenge him, and he challenges me. And I said to him just a couple of hours before sort of coming onto the show that although I know that right now the life I'm living, it's all about this life. It's all about the lessons and the things I can experience now in this life. There is a huge part of my capacity as a human being that's just really interested in stuff. I find it entertaining, but I also feel like it's filling a gap, an opportunity to put some stuff in there.
Yeah. So in answer to Tina's in response to Tina's question, actually, I want to read something, and it might take up to 5 minutes. So it is something that I was working on, and even today, and I might deviate a little bit away from it, but it tells the story and it tells the story of humanity and the Anunnaki, and why we are the way we are. So what I want you to do, you can either sit, well, of course you guys are sitting down, but I mean, as I said earlier, just listen with an open heart and an open mind, okay? And whatever part resonates with you, let it sit with you and let it resonate, okay? But I want you to just close your eyes and just listen to the story, okay? So it goes. For a land that flowed but once, with pureness through its veins, overflowing with the pulse of the ever-knowing wisdom and knowledge of the ancients, where peace once ruled the lands, where we, the Anunnaki, graced the existence of the people of man, being the creators of the created existence of the beings of the embodiment of the flesh, where all hearts joined and beat as one, downloading our knowledge to those standing tall, to those choosing to receive. Yet we too exploited the engineered and created race, a feat of wonder to behold, for humanity have evolved beyond our expectations. Yet we are the infiltrators of the appearance of the illusion one thinketh is a mere reality. As a race, we lived in the aspects of the created duality of one another, a bickering in the making of opposing beliefs and wisdom, both a darkness and a light, in the making of the transcendence of the epitome of evolving. But a folly we were, for we, the Anunnaki, were but our own downfall, a collapse within the system of our own race, a warring faction, a causing of the great divide, and the people of man, an intelligent and capable race, with choices made along the journey of one's choosing, of either a fallenness of believing in separation from the whole, pertaining to the loss of the darkness within, or the choice to seek the attainment of the cup of the overflow and enlightened self. For knowledge equals power, which in turn leads to greed, followed by disagreements and separation of the whole, leading to ego, ejecting God's source out. That in turn equals to the uprising, and the war was inevitable. The people of man have been led but astray, and it's a sad consequence of the human deviation. And you have lived in a nefarious, institutionalized state of codependence since the dawn of time. Yet there were those of us that bestowed knowledge on the people of man, hoping to inspire, hoping to reawaken their dormant souls, to allow them their soul progression, a coexistence of all races on a higher level of consciousness, a higher grid of consciousness, to help see their own true divine nature of self. But all was not to be, for it was our undoing, a destruction of civilization, of races, of star people incarnate. The winds of the deluge swept through the land, leaving nothing but stillness in its void of a once thriving existence. The lands to the east of the great pyramids of once ancient Egypt, of Giza, a tale foretold, carried by now nothing more than the faint whispers of the sands of time, a technology so ancient, buried deep within the slumbering subconscious of the people of man, a failure but of similar demise by a race unknowledgeable, who but came but with the staff of both peace and demise, of resurrection and oblivion, and yet through the polarities the elevation of consciousness for mankind. And yet they too salvage. For war and famine scarred the lands, and death the inevitable. And all return to the dust of the land of non-existence, a civilization long lost and forgotten. As the kingdom with walls adorned, embroidered with the intricate ages of the golden, the ancients. For but a fleeting moment, as you close your eyes, in the hidden crevices of your slumbering mind, remember the sweet smell of nature in bliss, the aroma of the sweet spices lingering through the air, the thriving of nature, and being one with all there is, being one with the sacred heartbeat of Mother Earth, of living in harmony with all and in sync with the divine frequency. A wisdom far out, a wisdom unbeknownst to the people of man, a potential of a great intergalactic race, of love, of war, but peace yet once again. But wars and plagues ravaged the lands of milk and honey. Rivers swelled their banks, turning the once clear waters to ruby red, deluging the once fertile lands. The pungent smell of death and billowing smoke filled the air, plunging day into a constant darkness, where the light was all but dimmed to a fear of being. The cries of the people of man and incarnated intergalactic beings could be heard in the heavens as death bore down, sweeping the souls back into the light. Alas, too late for lessons unlearned, for but the wisdom we held was too soon for the fragile people of man to behold. And alas, we the Anunnaki filled. We, but once a great race of wisdom-held sages, carriers of sacred knowledge, were the outcasts of the universe of the galactic enterprise, scarred and branded by all, by our experiences. And we came, when we came, but with a peaceful intent, and yet we destroyed all that had been built, for we but meddled with the free will of the people of men, wanting but only a love and divine worship. For yeah, we are gods, the creators of the species of man, and wish to be revered as such. But throughout our involvement, throughout time, we too have been a species of a changing, of becoming learned in our ways. We too perished in the vast chaos of darkness and lost many, as did the galactics, till many of the other races intercepted, and the lands became but dust once again. A fleeting remembrance to those now incarnate in the current shift and transitioning of Mother Earth and the people of man. Because right now, it is our future past that is at that same point. You have to understand that the Pleiadians are the bringers of the light, of cosmic elevation, of peace, a thoughtful intergalactic family of healers, healing at a vibrational frequency faster than the speed of light, with a bond and a love for all that knows no bounds, for they just are. You have the Syrians, the upholders of the strong and righteous, the gatekeepers of the universal dimensions of peace, upholders of the galactic laws of time, of space, of reason, and realignment to source of the galactic whole. Now understand that you were once a warrior of the divine who aided us, undoing the wrongs of many. And it seems befitting to guide but once again the lost back into the light of remembrance, of awakening. To stand in your own power I am, and remember who you are. A warrior but once fallen has arisen once more, reborn, to unslumber the self and to teach the lost of the ways of the ancients, of the long forgotten learnings of enhancing life and a love for all. All are capable of change. Yet, some have slid down the path of darkness too far, incapable of accepting the shift and the deprogramming at this time of the ascension of the people of man. You know, the world is at a stage of change. Nothing remains but in its current state of existence. Everything in the universe is in constant motion of being, of creating. Change is inevitable, and the winds of deception and death are blowing once more. Chaos ensued in perils of the venture of life, yet it is also the embarking on the journey back to the reveling of the light in self. They're saying, please let your world not perish in vain once more. Let it not be your undoing. And remember to let your heart and mind connect back to the soul, to source. And it's important to just sit in the quiet of your own spirit and let that love flow through you and to just be. Let the lessons of repeated chaos not be in vain, for the world is in need of a coming together, not a further divide into the entangled chaos of the current existence. You know, when will you learn to step out of the matrix? How dark must it become for you to be able to see the light? You walk not waking, but in the sleep mode of the illusion of an unauthentic existence. Many of you choose to walk around hooked to the drip-fed dream, you know, because basically it's like a drip-fed dream state, keeping you comatose in the program state of the phantom matrix. So you are, without a shadow of a doubt, it's like you are a lethal concoction, an intoxication to the self, that through the dimness of the light within, you breathe but in the superficiality of your own existence, and not realizing that you are actually injecting yourself with the poison of a slow withering dis-ease, a discomfort within, you know. But you have to understand that you are only as aware as you choose to be according to the divine frequency that you vibrate at. So if that is the song your heart sings to you, and vibrate with the soul frequency of the current version of you, then sing with all your heart to the musical resonance thereof. Okay? And they go on to say that currently, the divide instilled within humanity has been much like the trickling effect of water, finding its way through the small created cracks of losing one's true nature within the bedrock over time. And so when that happens, it's like humanity has strayed further from the self, and the cracks have eroded and widened, and one's true authenticity has been swept away by the deluge of the rushing waters, trying to keep oneself from drowning in the torrent of life's play. You know, it's like you're caught up in the illusion of the created reality of the earthly narrative, and you follow it. You have to understand, and it's something that I even said last time, and they reiterated this. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, right? But yet, because of your superficialis flow, you live as a human thinking that you are having a spiritual experience. For that, and they're saying that is the frequency that you vibrate at. Because they're saying if you were actually a spiritual being having a human experience, you would think outside the parameters of the limited thinking you have so conditioned and been instilled with. You would live in the expansion of yourself and actually realize that what you believe to be true is but a mere illusion. It's a figment of one's external imagination, of the imprint that you have created to perceive as authentic and real, but actually is not. And they go on and talk about the dividedness. And they're saying, well, you are actually so divided because you have allowed yourself to be misguided, you know, by the contradictive narrative that you have been fed and you have allowed yourself to listen to. Like, or you live in the ghastly illusion of yourself, okay? thinking that who you perceive yourself to be is the gospel truth of your true authenticity. Yet, one is but deprived of the light of remembrance by the daily mind-fed annihilation of what you think is a portrayal of reality, but is not. And as such, you choose to roam in that created adaptation of that chosen enactment. Your brains have been so utterly mud-washed by the cacophony of the blustering vapid air that it has been drilled into you that you believe that to be a reality. You know, one's soul has been so deluged and your awareness is slipping away. And you work not as a community of the integrated light particles that you are, but as a bipartisan disassociation of the self and the whole. And they're saying it's really now time to come together and work in unison. And there is this little mantra that they have given, and they say in love, in light, in healing. And they say, remember those 3 words and use them as a mantra to awaken and to remember. And it's very much like, you know, with Saint Germain, the violet flame, which is a very powerful mantra as well. This one is easier, in love, in light, in healing. Okay, and if you repeat that like 10 or 20 times, it will really start to resonate within your soul. And they're also saying here, you know, ask us for guidance, because we stand here humbly before you to aid you in acceptance of our knowledge, our wisdom, and of the galactic intel, so that you will not tread the path of darkness. But once again, they say, let us right our wrongs from the eons of time, long before gone, when life was so much purer, far more advanced, when the people of man worked in unison with the sun and the alignment of the stars, when nature was a blessed field of rhythmic harmony, of equilibrium, where you listened to the heartbeat of one another and of Mother Earth, where all ran its course through the laws of the universe, and all were in harmony with love from the heart and connected to the source creator. Walking through the fields of the growing corn, you did not deserve to die. Oh, how you dwelleth from your path, for separation exists but in the mind, for you are a collective of the whole. So hear the whispers from deep within, for the book of the divine, of living in your true authenticity, is encoded within. Everything is encoded within your DNA. You are anointed by the blessings of the celestial beings of the heavens, for they are celestial beings of the heavens. The learnings are all written by the ancients of time. They are scribed by the self in accordance with the laws of the divine, and the magic of the words absorbed into the subconscious awareness by the people of man to awaken the self. Many have awakened, but there are those that have slipped into the muddled eeriness of darkness, residing in the familiar, and through the divide, chaos erupts, you know, and has erupted in the past, and always lost in the sands of time. But you also have to understand that we, the Anunnaki, have been reborn. Some of us are reborn in the people of man to experience the existence of the human form once more, as have the intergalactics, to aid in shifting the vibrational frequency of the planet at this current time. For since the dawn of life of existence of all, wars have raged in the name of separation, of the denseness of non-understanding. For you live in such denseness and continue so forth. And they finish it off by saying, every breath is a commencement of change, of transforming the tapestry of life. To unravel or not to unravel, that is a path of your own choosing, is it not? So they say, learn to look with the eyes of awareness and not just what others choose you to see. And they finish it off with saying, in truth and accordance with the Galactic Federation of Light, we too are here to help aid in the ascension and shift of consciousness in alignment with the galactical grid of existence.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So I hope that resonated. I hope that gives you some insights.
Yeah. They just need to sort our governments out, don't they? on a planetary scale, and then which I think they are slowly, but
Yes.
It's a long process.
It is a long process, yeah. Any thoughts?
I was just saying, do the anarchy exist in a physical form now, or in the same way that you and I are 3D, someone we could physically see and feel, or are they very much a spiritual being and realm?
Both.
They can shift through frequency. So if they want to be seen, then they can be.
In my mind, I was saying I'd like to shake their hands, but I suppose they're 20 foot high. They'd need to lay down.
You need a good pair of steps.
But I do believe some of them have incarnated on Earth. They have, because they have chosen to incarnate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's one of the things as a sort of spiritualist, whenever I wander into to sort of other forms of life beyond the human sort of kingdom, I very much sort of get pinged back like a piece of elastic to focus on what I am doing now, and that's where my mind sort of likes to wander. It's a very simple thing, our brain, very powerful, very complex, but it likes to bring in some sort of order. And I've always imagined this sense of evolution, and we used the word evolution earlier on, where each life, each incarnation, even if you only take the things I'm aware about that I can read about on planet Earth, that there was this sense of evolution. If I started off as rocks and minerals, there was evolution. But of course, Birgitta, you came and spoke to me about karma, and of course we said that even as a new human being for the first time, given the choice, you might not necessarily choose the life where you're going to experience and fulfill everything. In fact, given the choice, you might choose a pretty simple, easy life with a strong, healthy mother and feces and everything you've got in your life. And it's only after you return to that place I call heaven you would decide, actually, that was a bit too easy. I didn't really learn anything. So perhaps evolution, I'm thinking, isn't necessarily about growing and evolving. Evolution is going through everything. It's that experience. And that would, I suppose, then, in my simple mind, make more sense about what I describe as aliens wanting to incarnate as a human being. It doesn't have to get bigger and better the whole time. Evolution is about experiencing everything and understanding, for want of a better words, your karmatic debt.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I just see this from June. We need them here now, Birgitta. There's so much ingrained evil on our earth. Yes, but do you understand? Do we understand right now? This is about, when I said we are stuck in the phantom matrix. Okay, everything around you that you believe to be a reality is because you have been conditioned in the matrix, in this matrix of society. And so we have forgotten our authenticity. We really have forgotten. What do? We go to work, right? That's what we do. We go to and we save up because we want to buy a house, or we want to buy a car, we want to go on holiday or vacation. But life is so much more than that. So we're stuck in this system from the day that we are born. And right now, what is going on in the world, and I can see it because I'm so elevated, so I can see above all the political drama. But this is about the systems crumbling, okay? Right now, that is exactly what's happening. And I have said this before when I talk about Saint Germain, who I've said last time, I love him because he's quirky, he's eccentric, and he's right on the money. But America stands for I am race. You can scramble, you write it down and you will see I am race. Because they are the forerunners of the golden age, just like in Atlantis. And of course, Atlantis came way after Sumeria. But, people lived in harmony with one another. They worked together in unison. They did not believe themselves to be separate from the whole. And of course, there was that divide again, of course. So that's why it went under. But so this right now is about the systems crumbling, and especially in the US. Okay, and I've said this before, what you think a reality is not a reality. So I want you to elevate your consciousness, okay? I want you to elevate. It's like when you are soaring, when you're in an airplane, when you're down below on the earth, you see life differently than when you're up in the sky, okay? Because it's two different perspectives. But because the system will fall, but it's always darkest before the dawn. So what I want you to do for the next month until pretty much the 21st of December, is I want you to shut down. I want you to really, because if you are gonna focus on the outer narrative, you're gonna start living in fear, which is exactly what they want. So switch off, read books, and just do whatever resonates with you, okay? What brings you joy, what gets you back to your inner awareness. And forget the outside chatter. On the 21st of December, there's going to be like a massive solar flare. And that's like what Archangel Michael actually calls the spiritual bang. You had the Big Bang, but this is like the spiritual bang. So it's a massive awakening for humanity. And there'll be like, oh my God, what's going on? And it's going to be huge. So right now, I just want you to stay focused and centered, because there's going to be lots and lots going on in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's also worth mentioning that because, like you were saying, we have Anunnaki incarnated here. So, like, they have an incarnation here, but they also have the incarnation off-world. So they are in two places at once.
Yes.
It's that they are being held accountable off-world. So things are moving forward. They are being held accountable off-world for their actions here.
Yes.
So
by themselves?
Sorry?
Being held accountable by themselves, like their higher self, or someone else?
They're being held accountable by galactic high councils and so on. So they would have been pretty much like we would be here. They would have been carted off and held accountable for what they've done here. So it's easy to it's easy to sort of think, how do these people get away with it? You might see their incarnations here, but their incarnations up there.
Yeah.
No, that
We have a mad scientist right now in 2020, don't we? So you can imagine that life on other planets had the odd mad scientist that wanted to march to the beat of their own drum and perhaps not do something that represented the entire wishes of the nation.
Yeah, and they are people that are in control of this planet.
Yes.
Household names.
But it will get better. It will get better, but it's gonna get chaotic.
Well, it will do. I mean, when how was it put to me the other day? When people start panicking and they lose control, chaos comes forward before everything calms down and becomes smooth again. So we're at the point where they know that they're losing. They're going down left, right, and centre. They're panicking like mad. Chaos is pandemonium on the planet at the moment.
Yes.
But at some point, that will calm out and go smooth.
As Archangel Michael put it, and he's kept me up. It was the 11th. He kept me up nearly all night. And I'm like, seriously. But, he's like, actually, you have to understand something. He's like, you are a multitude of manifestations in a multidimensional reality. So it's the blending of past, present, future timings, creating the you of who you are. And right now, he says, one is actually lost in the earthly density, having to find oneself back through the crinkles, back to one's own smooth rhythm divine. I really like that. And, when we talk about living in the earthly realms, it's like this game of evolution, like this board game of life. That's why I call it like Jumanji, except in Jumanji, you have 3 lives. Yeah. And remember, here it's just 1 life, and you conk out, and then you go back, and then you come back, and it's like, well, you got amnesia all over again.
Hey, can I ask you a question? When you were talking about the intergalactic council, I had the visions, somewhat influenced by Hollywood, of the Star Wars. So you've got the Empire, and you've got the council. You've got the obviously the defense. In Stargate, you had ascended masters, the ancients working together there. Doctor Who has his council there of international sort of time lords. Is that sort of some of the breadcrumbs of the truth? We're talking about a collection, a committee, for want of better words, of other planets and existences.
Yep.
Yeah, there's quite a few councils. Each planet has its own council, and it has a certain amount of members on its council. It varies from planet to planet. But then you've also got a galactic council, a galactic high council, and then you've got the intergalactics that also have councils as well, and that'd be representatives from each planet.
Like our sort of United Nations.
Pretty much, yeah.
Makes you wonder if they'd be the ones to represent us.
Yeah.
Oh, go on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I tend to find that whichever planet I'm working with at the time, if something doesn't go according to plan, then you will find yourself in front of one of those councils. Some planets are easier than others. But yeah, it's not difficult to find yourself in front of a council, but they are reasonably easy to deal with.
Do we as a planet have a seat on any of those councils?
Yeah, we do, yeah. Yeah.
Are you able to give us any ideas about who's representing us there?
Not really. I have to be a bit careful what I say about councils, because I've been up in front of a council talking about councils.
Right.
Funnily enough, I didn't actually think I'd overstepped, but they weren't impressed. So I can't talk about numbers and places and things like that, if you know what I mean.
And for me as a layman, can you explain the context of that? Is it because we're not meant to know too much now? Is it because we're meant to be focusing on what we're doing right now? We haven't reached that period of evolution.
Yeah, I don't know really why they don't want me to talk too much about it. I don't know. I mean, I guess you can find yourselves up in front of the council and perhaps not be aware of it because it's your higher self that's being dealt with, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be a bit nerve-wracking.
Richard's saying he was in front of the council because he forgot to pay his council tax.
Like they're very open-minded. They're not as closed as we are. Some of them are very difficult to work with because they're more, how can I put it, straight up and down and quite strict. Mm-hmm. And they cannot just understand the way that we work because we're so liberal. But generally speaking, they're quite open-minded.
As a go on, sorry, Birgitta.
See any comments? It's blank. So I'm sorry, people, if you make comments, that's great. But
you've got the nuisance, ladies, of having me on microphone today. I don't have to rely on live chat for my questions. I've been given the fantastic opportunity to ask these questions, and I was just thinking, Kate, again, as the sort of layman, we spoke a lot about transparency. We spoke about all these beings that want to help us, to sort of help us evolve. It then seems sort of a strange difference to sort of then say, well, actually, there's certain things you can't talk about. You've implied that you've possibly been in front of them before, so there are obviously things that that you can't talk about. But to the layman, help me understand the context of that. If like the difference between you and the average Joe.
There's no difference between me and anybody else. It's not an exclusive thing.
No, I don't mean like that sense. I mean obviously from a point of understanding or awareness. Because you said we may have even been in front and not realised, because that would be our higher self. So I'm just asking for the layman's interpretation.
Yeah, why I'm allowed to remember these things, I don't know. I can only imagine that I can remember and recall this stuff so as I can pass it on and open people up with it. If that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
It sort of does. It just feels like your hands are tied a little.
But they are a bit because of the work that I do galactically. So you've got to, how can I describe it? Like, it's not a secret agency, it's not that, but I just need to be a little bit careful about what I talk about because of what I do.
No, because there is also the darkness. There are also those who do not have the best intentions for humanity. There are many people that have been abducted. There are many that have gone. And we talk about the military. Oh my gosh! I mean, sometimes it goes so deep because people get experimented on. People become hybrids. People get trained for missions. And then we're talking about missions, other planetary missions, because the technology is so far advanced, but we don't get to see it. We normal humans don't get to see that.
Yeah.
And I have seen the Greys. I have met the Greys before.
I'm
like, well, what are you doing? But I mean, it didn't do anything to me, you know. But I was just watching. I was in the spaceship and I was watching from somewhere. Like, what are they doing?
I have been to the underground bunkers.
Have you? Oh.
And I have had the Mac Ultra. So
What can you tell us about that, Kate?
It basically, if you start doing the galactic work, there's obviously there's a darker side of it. Don't want you to move forward and do the work that you're doing. And that's where I'm working when I'm asleep, in dream time. I'm going off on missions and things like that. If the dark side pick up on that and they want you to stop, they will intercept you in dream time, take you into a dome and do the Mac Ultra thing. So, and I did notice as a result of that, I wasn't quite as driven as I used to be, and I couldn't work out why. And it's just like, no, I'm just not bothered about this stuff anymore. It's just not what it was. And then I recalled when I woke up in the morning a few times, there was just the most intolerable light and sound. I've never heard or seen anything like it. But that's what they use. They will use light and sound to take you off your path, as it were. Sort of thing. Yeah.
The Mac Ultra, that's similar to what I might have read about, sort of Russian espionage and those types of mind over matter control.
Yeah, I mean they've got a whole psychic warfare program. Well, every country's got one, right? Every country has one. Every country has a psychic warfare program, and it's just whether you remember that you're in that program or not. A lot of people are conditioned from the age of sort of 3 and 4 years old into these programs. They might not necessarily realise until they're much older that they've been conditioned from being really small.
Mm. This is where I wonder if directors of TV programs and videos can be a little bit creative by not revealing it as a truth in a documentary, but as something fantasy. There was a show that actually on BBC I watched recently called Fort Salem, and it was all about the history of America and what if actually the soldiers were women who were so-called witches, and how they use their sort of powers. And something that I always think about this time of the year is a friend of our church, Vari Kemp, used to speak about her parents who during the Second World War worked for the Ministry of Defence as remote viewers. Vari Kemp used to call herself the accidental psychic. She's still picking up on bits and pieces from her parents, but it's taken 50, 60 years for the MOD to declassify even the fact that they employed civil servants as remote viewers and parachute them into occupied countries.
But the countries keep track of their hybrids. And it's the hybrids that go into the programs more often than not, unless you have a certain type of DNA. And then now we're getting into our medical system, and then your DNA is tracked from the moment you're born. Your heel's pricked for a blood test. So they've got your DNA from the beginning. They know who the candidates are going to be that are going to be more accepting to this kind of thing. And you get into the galactic wars as well. Every planet has to donate a certain amount of soldiers to the galactic wars. It's just one of those things. Whether you remember it or not is another matter. A lot of people will be doing this work at night and they won't be aware that they're doing it. Other people get to remember it and have to question it and work out why. And that's where that person will fall through the system. Your government will get wind of it. And then you're fighting that as well as everything else in the galaxy at night. So yeah, it's interesting.
You can't get a member of the council, Kate, can we, to come on your show in a couple of weeks' time? I don't know if they've got Skype in the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, they probably would have better internet. It just plugs straight in, doesn't it?
Do you know what, Richard? Can I just say something? We can't see any comments on the screen. They've disappeared completely for a while now. I'm just seeing us, nothing else. No messages, no comments.
Because we were talking about the things we were not meant to talk about.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, they're back on now, Rich.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah. So tomorrow afternoon we have a conversation with Bex, and that's at 2:30. And tomorrow evening, I can't see that. Sam Pert with a demonstration of mediumship. That's tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Is that right? So it's all blurry. Sorry. We have a crystal special on Tuesday from 1 o'clock. And a trance demonstration on the 6th of December. That looks like Polly there. And Leah. Oh, that would be good.
We missed loads of questions. Yes, they're still happening.
Yeah, it's still happening.
They're still happening. And it's more to do with DNA. It's more to do with that they probe around, but it's sometimes to do with DNA stranding. So let me take an example, a very classic example that you should have heard of, David Bowie, half reptilian, half human.
Yeah. Yeah, there's hybrid programs. A lot of the planets have hybrid programs.
Yes,
and again, like you've got the light and the dark with that as well.
Same thing.
So you have the programs, and then you've got the people that are abducted, and you get the hybrid that way. Also, you can put yourself onto a hybrid program and not know about it, and then when you find out, it's really blooming annoying. Often called offence, I find. Anyway.
There's one other thing where we're talking about the good guys and bad guys, right? And the Intergalactic Council and everything. And I love the Intergalactic Council and the Galactic Federation. I love them all. But so currently what's going on in our world, when I was talking about the systems that are crumbling to make way for the new. So the old needs to come to the surface, it needs to be alchemized and then into the light. But right now everything is servicing. But remember that both sides have a narrative for us to kind of follow. But I believe that it's just a deviation because there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that, technically.
That's really interesting. We have internet issues. So we're going to have to...
Oh, interesting.
What a surprise. You start talking about...
Yes.
It keeps cutting out, apparently. Are we getting a bit close to the bone?
I think so.
This... Yeah, Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this game's going to go one or two ways, and we'll know. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yes, we live in interesting times.
I'll see you in the head teacher's office.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, Ashley, for your company tonight.
Yes,
thank you, ladies, for your patience with me and my limited understanding. It's been really interesting to be here. Thank you, Mr. Richard James, for your wonderful production energy.
Right. Cheers, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Stay safe.